Married men of Reddit, what moment with your future wife made you think yup, I'm asking this girl to marry me? My dad told me he knew he wanted to marry my mom when the McDonald's opened in Moscow after the USSR crumbled and she ate 6 Big Macs in a row. Sniff, that's beautiful. Short version, she literally saved my life. Less short version, I'm from Michigan. Back in December 2014, I was in Delaware for a business trip. I ended up getting food poisoning, which brought on DKA. For those non-diabetes, basically your blood gets poisoned and your body tries to fight it off, which proves to be futile. I was vomiting constantly and kept drifting in and out of consciousness. My wife, then girlfriend, called me about 20 or 30 times before I finally answered. The only thing I could force myself to say was, "Hi baby, I'm really sick." Then I blacked out again. What seemed like 5 minutes passed, which was actually about 12-13 hours, when I heard a banging on my hotel room door. I heard my girlfriend's voice yelling at me, "Let me in." I screamed as loud as I could, "Gets in here, gets in here," then I blacked out. I woke up in the hospital a day later. I found out that when I didn't answer the door, she ran downstairs, got a key, came up, and called an ambulance. The ambulance said that they would be there in 30 minutes. She said that's not soon enough. She put me into a rolling computer chair and pushed me to the elevator and out to her car, threw my near lifeless body in the backseat, and drove me to the hospital. When all was said and done, my body had a blood sugar level of 1400. My normal range is 110-140, and my white blood cell count was around 3000. I'm not 100% about this number, but I know it was high. My wife sat with me for 6 days in the hospital, sleeping in the chair next to me, left to eat but came right back. She didn't leave my side. I should also mention that this was only 4 months after we started dating. However, we had been friends for a few years before this. I found out later that if she would have waited for the ambulance, I would not have made it. She literally saved my life. She sacrificed her time, risked getting fired and failing classes to drive 13 hours from Michigan to Delaware to take care of me. Once it all hit me as to what she had done, I was completely speechless and realized that if this girl is willing to do something like this for me, I must be pretty freaking special to her. I made it a priority once I recovered to ask her mother and father for their blessing, which they both gave me. I married her in May 2016. One of the scariest things to ever happen to me ended up showing me my girlfriend's devotion and love for me. We just hit our 1-year anniversary, and although we're a young couple, we are still kicking ass and going strong. I'm a nurse, so this was one of my favorites. 1400 is higher than the highest case I've seen. I think my highest case was in the 800s. To give people an idea of how high 1400 is, the glucose meter that you can actually use in the room doesn't even register above, I want to say, about 600. They have to draw blood and check it in the lab. I got mad and yelled at her for some stupid crap because I had been in a toxic relationship prior to meeting her, and I thought that what couples did, scream and argue. I expected her to yell back at me, but she just stared at me for a moment and asked if I was done. I said I was, and she proceeded to explain to me that people who love one another do not treat each other that way. We can disagree with one another, but there's no reason to be mean. If we're going to be together, please don't be mean to me again. That was 26 years ago. We've been married 25 years. She invited me to her apartment to cook me dinner. On my way, I picked up a prescription and promptly took the first pill. 5 minutes before dinner was ready, I had an adverse effect and passed out on her couch. Woke up and she was gone. Figured she went to the bar across the street we go to. Nope. As I was getting ready to leave, she returned with a fresh set of clothes and toiletries for me for work the next morning. She walked 9 blocks up the hill to my apartment, got me everything I needed for the next day, and came back. This was our second date. We had a long distance relationship. We lived 3 to 4 hours away from each other the entire time we dated. We had met at a concert and traded emails and MSN info. Classic. We emailed and chatted every day, sometimes for hours. We poured our hearts out about our fears and dreams. I'd go visit her every other weekend, and she'd come once in a while my way. About 3 or 4 months into doing this, I'm at home chilling at home playing some game in my room. My dad calls up the stairs that I got a package in the mail, so I, confused, come walking down the stairs, And there she was. She came up to visit as a surprise. Without thinking, I instinctively ran to her and hugged her and lifted her and spun her a bit. And I felt in my heart a wholeness, like holding her filled in something I was missing. I knew then that I never would let her go, metaphorically speaking. Been married over 9 years, and I still get that feeling when I hug and kiss her. This crap, right here, is why I am surprising my girlfriend by driving the whole 10 hours. 2 years strong, baby. I left my favorite CD in her car, Dream Theater's Scenes from a Memory. She wasn't a huge fan, but put up with it whenever I listened. One day I was on the phone with her while she was driving, and we said goodbye but she forgot to hang up. I waited a few seconds and I heard her singing along. I would love to connect with my soul through music. We'd been together for years, and were on vacation. People asked us if we were newlyweds and we said no, and they said, so you've been married for a long time then? It did not occur to anyone that we were not married. We figured at that point we might as well throw a party and make it official. Have to post this for my dad. My parents met 39 years ago last Friday, in a lineup for a movie. My mom's friend knew my dad from another friend and introduced them. My dad was known as a wild guy, and my mom was seriously considering becoming a nun. Naturally, they started dating. Couple months later, my mom found a lump in her breast. My dad's aunt died of breast cancer very young, and it just freaked him out, I guess. My mother had the lump removed and thank God it was benign, but my dad had already rushed out and bought an engagement ring. He always claims he knew from the moment he saw her, but a couple of glasses of wine and he will tell you that he saw what life could be like without her, and it wasn't worth living. They never fight, they always work together, and my mom's heart still skips a beat when he comes home from work. This has to be the cutest one here. I had just left a job I hated because I was leaving for grad school in my desired field. I only had a couple of months left chilling at home and doing some volunteer work before leaving. I told myself, there is no reason to get involved with any women. There will be smart girls aplenty in grad school, and you do not want to get into some kind of long distance relationship. So of course we met in late May, first date in June. Things were going well enough that I asked if she'd be willing to road trip 22 hours with me to school, and she offered to pay for her own one-way ticket back home. We were locked in a car together for 2 days, and when I dropped her off at the airport in Florida, I still wanted to hang out with her. That's when I knew. 2 years of long-distance dating, many flights on budget airlines, but we celebrated our first wedding anniversary this past spring. I got into a doctorate program last fall. She made that road trip with me for that too, but no need to buy the return ticket that time. When I was a young lad I had bought a pair of swords. Now for some reason I still had them, but when my now wife agreed to come over my place I decided to hide them in a storage closet because why would any grown man have these? So, a while down the line she was looking for something in said closet when I heard, what the heck, you have swords? Why are you hiding these? I was prepared to be mocked mercilessly, when instead she handed me one and then started swinging. It was about that time that I realized I was going to marry her. You should have shouted there can be only one before beheading her. We had gone on 2 or 3 dates before I asked her to be my girlfriend, and I knew the instant she said yes that we would be married one day. Her eyes just lit up like nothing else when I told her I wanted to make things official. It has felt like I can read her mind since the day I met her. I know when she's happy, sad, upset, tired, annoyed, etc. I knew a few days before she asked me to move in with her that she was going to ask. We have been in sync pretty constantly, and I'm incredibly lucky to be married to someone with whom I'm so in tune. We dated for 3 years, but I knew from day one that we were going to be married. I don't really believe in soulmates or anything too mystical. However, if there was anyone who could change my mind about that, it's my wife. Engaged. Our first date lasted 12 hours because we just couldn't stop talking. Our second date was supposed to be just dinner and it lasted almost 2 days. She drove away after the second date and I couldn't imagine my life without her in it. I was ecstatic to find out she felt the same. I asked my husband and he said it was about a year into our relationship. He says, right after we moved to WA, from more. And I woke up in the middle of the night with an arrhythmia. Even though you had to work the next day and it was 2 AM, You calmly suggested we go to the ER just to be sure. You talked to the doctors, asked questions, rubbed my feet, you hate feet, and did everything to keep me calm. You were my advocate and made sure I got taken care of. I knew then that I wanted to be with you forever. I felt very loved and proud that you were mine. It turns out he had mild sleep apnea. He didn't snore, so I had no idea. And when his brain would shoot adrenaline into his system after not breathing for a second, it would totally freak up the electrical system in his heart, causing an atrial fibrillation. It hasn't happened since he got a CPA or shortly after this episode. Glad we went to the doctor because he told me it had happened before. AFib can cause clots to form in the heart because the blood doesn't always fully exit the ventricles, and can lead to stroke. Sleep apnea is no joke, people. That was in September 2014. He proposed in April 2015, and we've been married since August 2016. Our first baby is due in 2 weeks. It's a boy. When I first told my father that I was dating someone new, he jokingly asked, "What's her name? What does she do? What's her bra size?" I told her about it, hoping to prepare her for his sense of humor, and she thought it was hilarious. The first time they met, she introduced herself by saying, "Hi, I'm Stephanie. I'm in college and I'm a B cup." My father was horrified, my mother was laughing hysterically, and I was in love. You married well. In my first week as licensed as a paramedic, I had a 2-year-old die on me. When I got off work, I drove to my girlfriend's place and told her about my day. I was pretty numb at the time, trying to process this kid's death despite all my efforts. I laid down on her couch, and she just wrapped her arms around me and laid with me for 3-4 hours as I tried to process. She didn't push or ask lots of questions, just laid there quietly and held me. I slowly was able to talk my way through it, and then the tears started. She cried with me. I felt the whole world was so dark and ugly, but she was my island of light. Started saving up for a ring that week, and asked her to marry me 6 months later. In September we celebrate our 5-year wedding anniversary. I'm still a paramedic, and she's still my island. Thanks for the work you do. Ain't easy, but you make the world better. I've been married just over a week, so I've been telling this story a lot lately. We were 3 days into a month-long backpacking trip in Southeast Asia. We're staying in a seedy hotel in Bangkok and she gets a bad case of food poisoning. It's coming out of both ends for 24 hours. I, of course, am now designated as her nurse. I'm refilling her water bottle, getting her soup from the restaurant outside, keeping her company and, most importantly, emptying the trash bin she keeps puking into. After one trip to empty her vomit bucket, I come back into the room and she's asleep. I looked at her and thought to myself, I'm not even bothered by this. I'd do anything for her. This is the woman I'm going to marry. She's a disgusting bath fairy, but she's my disgusting bath fairy. Zero regrets. When we were having a conversation and she kept making me laugh. Her sense of humor is incredible. It also helped when I was taking her out on an early date and she said, "You're spending too much money on me." She knew money was very tight for me. We were in college. Our 34th anniversary is this Saturday. My wife still tells me I spend too much money on her. She also knows I don't make very much. She doesn't seem to understand that making her happy is always worth it. When my son called her mama, my ex left us high and dry when my son was 4 months old. There was this guy I was kinda casually seeing, and the very first time I met his son, he excitedly called me mommy and held out his arms. I looked at the man with the most alarmed look on my face, and he had the same look. I was like, WTF yo, and he was like, this has never happened before. Still makes me wonder sometimes. She told me on several occasions that she would murder me if I dumped her after she turned 40, so I proposed on her 40th birthday. 40th. I don't know why, but that looks so weird written out. Also congrats. The very first time I laid eyes on her, we married after going steady for 15 months and remained married for 56 years, until her death 3 years ago. Blue-eyed blonde and a 10 in my book. Miss her terribly. I'm sorry for your loss, but your love was so big. How beautiful and lovely, knowing long true love is still out there in human form. The day she took off work to help me go through a dumpster, I had accidentally thrown my keys in the trash while cleaning out my car. That's frickin' teamwork. For the most part, it was the fact that the very day we started dating she was staying at my house, not quite living there, just hanging out forever till that turned into living with me. Never thought too much about it till a year later and realized that we have never spent a day away from each other. Married September 2006, and still going strong. Oh, I so get this. We held out for 6 months before we officially moved in together. We'll celebrate 22 years of marriage this September. Once I got flu, she stood by me day and night until I recovered. I got to see her nurturing side for the first time. I was already in love with her. This sealed the deal. I was driving us home from a golf tournament for couples. We stopped to get some lunch and as I was driving she handed me a perfectly unwrapped burger that I could eat one-handed while she sat cross-legged next to me. Not sure why, but I just felt so loved, nurtured and happy in that moment. Now that's sort of our thing. We love to travel and no matter where we stop to eat she will always make sure I am able to eat in a convenient way. Something about watching the road while your now wife sets a napkin on your leg, puts the fries face up in the cup holder and gets the burger ready to go. Been together 10 years, married for 2. I was 18 and just gotten out of a dental appointment where 2 of my wisdom teeth were pulled out. I was drooling, stains of blood all over my shirt, and it was the summertime. My GF at the time was 16, took what little money she had from her allowance, bought me a box of ice cream and biked 25 minutes just to deliver that box of ice cream and see how I was doing. With blood stains all over, she still gave me that look of love and planted a kiss on me. That was almost 20 years ago and I still can't imagine having a happier life without her in it. May life be kind to you. On our 4th date we got a cheap pizza and went to a park in October up north. We fell asleep and woke up freezing at 2 in the morning. Instead of getting up and leaving we just held each other and went back asleep for another 2 hours. I knew from that moment I was gonna marry this girl. By the use of up north and cheap pizza probably meaning Little Caesars, I'm going to guess you're from Michigan, lol. Things were going really well, and I was saying to myself, if this keeps up, I think next summer I'll pop the question. Then, my mother had a stroke. We were all sitting in the waiting area outside the ICU, because only 2 people were allowed in at a time. It was my now wife's birthday, and a Wednesday, and she didn't hesitate to take the day off to sit with me and my family. I went to visit my father at home, and she came with me. Her Italian instincts kicked it, and she brought a load of groceries and a lasagna with her. My father was a mess at the hospital, and it fell on me and my siblings to speak with the doctors and make plans. I would get home and pour myself some bourbon. She made me dinner and just sat with me while I silently sobbed. It wasn't about how great we were when things were good. It was about how perfect she was when things were bad. I bought the ring 2 months later. It wasn't about how great we were when things were good. It was about how perfect she was when things were bad. This is really important. Great story. I was divorced going on my 3rd year, had dated several women, but this one girl I only had been dating 10 days when I blurted out asking her to marry me. She said yes. It's been 32 years now and we're still very much in love. When the schmossby turns out for the better. You have been visited by the Good Sleep Pizza. You will be blessed with cozy sleeps, but only if you upvote before going to sleep. Thanks for watching. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day you magnificent people.